Her words hit harder than any slap. At her birthday celebration, surrounded by 20 onlookers, my sister locked eyes with me and declared, "She's the family disappointment." She couldn't even bring a proper gift. Laughter erupted around us. My mother made no move to intervene. My father stared fixedly at the floor. Even my 9-year-old son heard everything. He tugged gently at my sleeve, whispering questions about why Aunt Lena spoke so harshly. I remained silent. I simply smiled. Then I reached into my bag and handed Lena an envelope. As she examined its contents, all color drained from her face. Her knees buckled beneath her. She literally collapsed to the floor. The entire room fell deadly quiet. You could hear distant glasses clinking. No one uttered a sound. And in that precise moment, everything transformed forever. I had dreaded attending this gathering, not from any lack of affection for my sister, but because I knew exactly what to expect. Her parties always serve as performances, not just through lavish decorations or champagne fountains, but in how she presents herself before an audience. Everything becomes theater, and if you're not part of the spectacle, you inevitably become the punchline. Yet when my mother called asking if I'd actually attend this year, I confirmed that Noah and I would appear. I refused to give them another reason to dismiss me. At 32, I navigate life as a divorced mother raising my son independently. I maintain 2 part-time positions, mornings at a bakery, evenings handling administrative work for a dental practice. My existence lacks glamour but preserves integrity. I avoid complaints and keep my focus narrowed on responsibilities. I've mastered extending modest finances and frequently sacrifice personal comforts to ensure my son never experiences deprivation. My sister Lena inhabits an entirely different reality. At 28, she possesses that effortless beauty commanding attention whenever she enters a room. Her substantial social media following, sophisticated downtown apartment, and collection of designer accessories she never personally financed all testify to her charmed existence. She navigates social situations with calculated precision, especially when seeking something from others. Our parents remain completely captivated by her, particularly our mother. Mom represents the type of woman obsessively concerned with appearances. Her manicure never chips. Her smile never falters. She consistently reminds acquaintances that both daughters received proper upbringing. Yet in her estimation, only one daughter fulfilled those expectations. Dad maintains a quieter presence. He typically avoids confrontation, retreating into his phone or wine glass when tensions rise. While never overtly cruel toward me, he similarly never stands in my defense. And then there's Noah, my entire world. At 9, he possesses greater compassion than most adults I've encountered. Intelligent, sensitive, and perpetually observant. He notices every expression, every hesitation in conversation. I've worked tirelessly to ensure he witnesses strength rather than struggle in my conduct. Yet sometimes I wonder what perceptions he forms when surrounded by my family dynamics. That evening, before our departure, I dressed him in his finest shirt, one discovered during a clearance sale and saved for special occasions. I wore a dress untouched for years, applied modest makeup, and took a steadying breath before the mirror. We drove to the venue in my aging Corolla, parking several blocks away because valet service seemed incongruently formal for our circumstances. The rooftop gathering buzzed with activity upon our arrival. White balloons floated above gold-accented tables. A live band performed gentle jazz while servers circulated offering miniature crab cakes and sparkling beverages. I spotted Lena commanding attention at the gathering's center, attired like a celebrity in a shimmering silver gown. She barely acknowledged our presence as we approached. I offered a polite birthday greeting, receiving only a perfunctory side embrace and cutting remark about my unexpected appearance. She softened her tone only when addressing Noah, as though compensating for the barb directed at me. I guided him toward a quieter corner, maintaining my strained smile. He requested something to drink, but the bar offered nothing non-alcoholic. My inquiry about water for children drew only confusion from a server who wandered away without responding. Once again, that familiar sensation of invisibility washed over me. The discomfort stemmed not merely from surrounding luxury or judgmental glances, but from the profound feeling of not belonging, of perpetually serving as cautionary example. Lena embodied aspiration. I represented warning. Nevertheless, I remained. I convinced myself my presence served Noah's interests. Perhaps this occasion might differ from previous experiences. Perhaps they might truly see me. I carried something significant in my bag, something I'd contemplated for weeks. I hadn't come seeking acceptance or validation. I arrived prepared to offer something entirely unexpected. Despite everything, despite whispered comments and scrutinizing glances, I maintained my composure because I knew the pivotal moment approached. When it arrived, I would stand ready. The music intensified as evening progressed, matched by increasing laughter. I preserved a courteous expression while answering inquiries from relatives unseen for years. Most expressed surprise that I continued residing in the same neighborhood, still performing what they termed modest jobs. One cousin even questioned whether I had finally begun dating again, as though independence represented some personal failing. I dismissed these comments with practiced ease, having grown accustomed to others confusing perseverance with indolence, quietude with weakness. Yet this particular evening carried additional weight, as though building toward inevitable confrontation. Instinctively, I sensed Lena would initiate it. Approximately an hour into the celebration, she ascended a small platform near the bar. A spotlight illuminated her as the music subsided. Raising her glass, she delivered a brief speech expressing gratitude toward attendees, thanking friends for making her feel like the queen she is, and acknowledging our parents for their unwavering support. Her delivery sounded polished, calculated, rehearsed. She omitted any mention of me, not even glancing in my direction. When someone called out encouraging her to open presents, the crowd applauded as though awaiting a performance. She responded with practiced laughter, tossing her hair before enthusiastically unwrapping elegantly packaged gifts. Luxury fragrance, golden jewelry, gift certificates, spa packages materialized before appreciative onlookers. I observed from the gathering's periphery, holding Noah's hand as he leaned against me, showing signs of fatigue. I assured him we would depart shortly, requesting just a few additional minutes. Then she held up the simple white envelope I had presented upon arrival. Against her perfectly manicured hands, it appeared starkly ordinary. She questioned what it might be, announcing to everyone it came from me. All eyes turned in my direction. Heat crawled up my neck as she waved the envelope theatrically, joking about my inability to afford proper wrapping materials. Several guests chuckled along. My stomach tightened painfully. She elevated her voice to ensure everyone heard her next comment about my probable inability to afford an actual gift. The laughter transformed into something sharper, echoing throughout the rooftop space, landing heavily against my chest. My mother participated with nervous, subdued laughter, but made no attempt to intervene. My father continued avoiding eye contact, pretending to check his watch. Noah looked up with bewildered eyes, whispering questions about why she spoke that way. I assured him everything was fine, that she simply didn't understand. Yet something within me finally fractured. Not exactly anger, not precisely sadness. Something different emerged, a quiet determination, an internal voice finally declaring, "Enough." I released Noah's hand, moved deliberately through the crowd without speaking, and positioned myself directly before my sister. Taking a deep breath, I smiled calmly, suggesting she open the envelope if that was her intention. She appeared momentarily disconcerted by my composure, but recovered with a smirk before dramatically tearing open the envelope. She clearly anticipated finding a simple card or perhaps handwritten note. Instead, the contents stopped her completely. Her eyes widened as they scanned the check with disbelief, then examined the accompanying letter, then returned to the check. The audience leaned forward, attempting to glimpse what had caused this reaction, but she remained frozen. Her lips parted without producing sound. She glanced around as though attempting to comprehend the situation. Then she retreated one step, then another, before eventually sitting down, not with theatrical flair, but as though physically unable to remain standing. Complete silence enveloped the celebration. The band ceased playing. The servers halted their movements. Even the evening breeze seemed momentarily suspended. No one yet knew what the envelope contained, but everyone recognized something significant had occurred. All eyes turned toward me. For the first time in countless years, I didn't feel diminished. I felt empowered because I understood precisely what I had given her and exactly why I had done so. But the moment wasn't complete. While everyone stared at my sister, I focused exclusively on Noah. He watched me with an expression I'd never witnessed before, not confusion or fear, but something resembling pride. He didn't yet understand the details, but somehow comprehended that something momentous had transpired, that his mother, who typically maintained a low profile, had just accomplished something significant. My sister remained seated on a lounge chair's edge, her silver gown arranged around her, hands trembling slightly as she held the check and letter. She blinked repeatedly, as though attempting to reorient herself. I maintained my silence a moment longer, realizing no one in that room understood what I had been accomplishing these past months. No one had inquired. No one had demonstrated interest. For 18 months, I had been working silently, awakening at 4 a.m. to bake before Noah's school preparation, dedicating every break and weekend toward learning online business management. I had always enjoyed creating natural skincare products, lotions, exfoliants, balms. So I began modestly, with occasional Etsy orders, farmers market sales, gradually developing a brand from nothing. I personally handled shipping, packaged everything by hand, and composed personalized notes for every customer. During evenings after Noah's bedtime, I completed online courses in business, digital marketing, branding, anything accessible, whether free or affordable. The process lacked glamour. Some months generated merely $20 after expenses. Sometimes I contemplated abandoning the effort, but persisted. Then 6 months earlier, my TikTok video demonstrating homemade body butter creation unexpectedly went viral. Within a week, I accumulated over 40,000 followers. Orders flooded in. Then arrived a message from Chelsea, who managed an e-commerce investment group supporting women-owned businesses. She recognized potential in my enterprise and proposed partnership to expand operations. 3 weeks before the celebration, we finalized documentation. My portion from the initial agreement, $40,000. Not a fortune, but sufficient to breathe freely for the first time in years. Enough to eliminate my car payments. Enough to provide Noah with more than mere necessities. Enough to finally establish something permanent that couldn't be dismissed with casual laughter. Yet I shared nothing with my family because I sought to prove nothing to them. I didn't desire applause. I didn't want my mother suddenly expressing pride or my father finally acknowledging my efforts. I simply wanted to proceed independently, quietly, honestly. But when my sister transformed me into public entertainment before Noah, before everyone, I realized my presence wasn't merely about politeness. I came to redefine the narrative they had collectively assigned to me. I selected the check amount deliberately, $25,000. Substantial enough to astonish her, yet not excessive enough to damage her. Sufficient to communicate my message. And the accompanying letter, which required 2 hours to compose, stated I had watched her discuss fashion line dreams while awaiting financial backing, and thought she'd never expect support from me. I explained this wasn't fundamentally about money, but about demonstrating I wasn't defined by her perception. I signed it from your sister, whom you labeled a failure. I hadn't planned this particular presentation method, but when she publicly humiliated me, I remained composed. I presented it because I wanted her to truly recognize who I had become. I didn't need to raise my voice or create a scene. I had already accomplished the most powerful action a quiet woman can perform. I built something that spoke on my behalf. Now everyone present understood, including her. She held the check as though it might burn her. Her fingertips hovered above the letter, her perfect nails visibly trembling while rereading it. Her gaze darted across the words, attempting to process the situation. I stood before her, calm, not triumphant, not angry, simply present. When she finally found her voice, it cracked slightly as she questioned the check's authenticity. This wasn't her usual performance. This represented genuine, unprepared emotion. I simply confirmed its legitimacy. She looked toward our parents. My mother's eyebrows had elevated dramatically. My father had finally stopped pretending to check his phone. He watched me as though seeing something entirely new. The silence expanded like spilled wine. Thick, uncomfortable, until my cousin broke it by asking about the envelope's contents. My sister responded barely audibly that it contained a check from me. Her phrasing suggested contradiction, as though the concepts were incompatible. When my uncle inquired about the amount, she hesitated before silently displaying it. A soft collective gasp rippled through the audience as they read the figure. $25,000. Unmistakably clear. then attention redirected toward me, questions evident in every gaze. How? Why? Was this some elaborate joke? My sister explained I had provided this to initiate her fashion business, stating I believed in her potential. That statement affected me more profoundly than anticipated. Because despite her cruelty, despite years of passive aggression and public humiliation, I had written that check without conditions. I didn't wish her failure. I didn't seek revenge. I simply wanted to conclude the story they had written for me. No one laughed now. No clever remarks followed. The music had completely ceased. Even the staff remained motionless. When my mother finally approached and cautiously asked what this represented, I met her gaze directly and explained it symbolized success, the kind she failed to anticipate. I spoke not to cause pain, but to state simple truth. For the first time in my life, I wasn't positioned outside looking inward. I wasn't requesting inclusion. I had claimed it, earned it. I returned to Noah, who remained in the corner holding partially melted chocolate from the dessert display. Confirming we were departing, I bent to kiss his head before we walked past guests still immobilized by shock. My father opened his mouth without producing sound. My sister stood silently behind, still clutching the envelope as though it outweighed anything previously held. As we approached the elevator, I overheard someone whisper about the impressive nature of what they'd witnessed. Noah smiled, wondering if they referred to me. I confirmed they likely did, returning his smile. We descended in silence. When the doors opened to the lobby, the evening air felt rewarding, crisp, and liberating. Outside, after securing Noah in his seat, I sat momentarily in the car, allowing silence to settle. Not the silence arising from being overlooked, but the kind resulting from finally being acknowledged. That envelope contained more than paper and ink. It represented declaration, a complete statement in a voice I hadn't previously exercised. I wasn't the family's disappointment. I was the one who refused surrender. The one who constructed something authentic while no one observed. And finally, they recognized me. The following morning, my phone remained unusually silent. No passive-aggressive messages, no group conversation notifications, no vague family updates or forwarded content from Mother, just quietude. And it felt appropriate. I prepared pancakes for Noah, allowing excessive chocolate chips. We ate in our modest kitchen with sunlight streaming through the window. For the first time in extensive periods, I felt no anxiety about the future. I wasn't anticipating judgment or rejection. I wasn't attempting to demonstrate anything to anyone. I had already accomplished that. Around midday, I received my sister's message asking if we could talk. I contemplated it a while, not from reluctance to respond, but because for once I possessed the authority to determine how the narrative continued. Not from fear, not from obligation, but from clarity. I waited several hours before responding that we could, but not today. That evening, Uncle Jay telephoned. He avoided unnecessary questions, simply stating his pride in me and noting it was time someone compelled them to examine themselves. His was the only call I answered. During subsequent days, circumstances evolved. Mother began identifying me in her social media posts as my daughter Ava, the entrepreneur. She omitted mentioning her absence throughout my journey, but I offered no correction. Father called once, apologizing for his silence that evening. I expressed understanding sincerely, recognizing he was never confrontational but the one concealed behind commotion. The most significant transformation emerged in the smallest moment. Noah returned from school days later with a handmade card, construction paper with uneven edges secured with glitter destined to perpetually embed in carpeting. On the front, in his 9-year-old handwriting, "My mom is incredible." Inside, he had illustrated me holding an enormous check while wearing a superhero cape. I wept in the car after dropping him off the following morning because no financial success, no viral content, no business arrangement could compare with that feeling. Knowing my son perceived me not as victim, not as someone generating pity, but as fighter, creator, woman who remained steadfast when maintaining insignificance would have been simpler. That confrontation at the celebration didn't resolve everything. My sister didn't transform overnight. She maintained her dramatic, incisive personality accustomed to commanding attention. But during our next encounter, she appeared different, more subdued, perhaps humbled. She didn't apologize as I had imagined, but she presented a small package containing a gold bracelet. Not extravagant, but authentic. The accompanying card read, To the strongest sister I know. We didn't embrace or cry, but something between us shifted. Not erased, but altered. For the first time in years, possible coexistence seemed achievable. Perhaps not as intimate friends, but as women who finally recognized each other as equals. I doubt my family will ever forget that evening. Not because of financial generosity, but because for once, the perpetually underestimated woman stood confident and communicated volumes without raising her voice. Here's my realization: power doesn't require shouting. Value needs no external validation. Success needs no external permission. Sometimes those expressing greatest doubt have abandoned their own aspirations. And sometimes the greatest self-kindness involves refusing to diminish yourself for others' comfort. Because success is an apology. It's declaration. And sometimes transforming everything requires just one envelope, one truth, and courage to deliver it with quiet confidence. If this narrative moved you even slightly, please support this video so others needing this message might discover it. Share it with anyone who has experienced being undervalued, overlooked, or silenced. Comment below about your own envelope moment. I read every response. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more authentic, unfiltered stories like this one, because someone may need to hear truth today. Thank you for watching, and remember, your voice matters even when whispered.